What up? How's everybody doing? All right, so are we going to war? My best guess is no. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think this thing is well planned out, and I think, well, as a soldier, ex-soldier, from what I've seen when I was in the military, this is the same thing we've been seeing. It's the CIA would create a puppet government, and then that government would be overthrown by America, the CIA, with the help of somebody else in some kind of way. And we would destroy the leader of that government, and pretty much send them to Never Never Land, like we did, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, Bin Laden, even though Bin Laden is still alive. Uh, we invaded Iraq, we invaded, Libya, we invaded all these other countries. We went and killed all these people and for freedom, but it wasn't freedom, it was oil. And now our gas prices are going through the roof. We're looking at, I went to the pump yesterday, gas prices was at $4. This the same thing we saw when Halliburton, you know, when Cheney and Bush went over and said there was, I don't know, there was weapons of mass destruction. We didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. So this is just another one of those things. But the biggest difference behind what's going on now and all of those other wars is those guys were third world countries. Even though they were very civilized, they were still third world countries. They could not match us when it came to firepower. So when we fought against, in the Iraq war and against Libya and all that, it's not really a fight. I mean, of course, we lost some soldiers. But what I'm saying is they weren't a nuclear threat. We even invaded Iran, recently, just so they can't be a nuclear threat. But the people who are really threatening us, we do not invade them. If you haven't noticed, we do not invade China. We do not invade Russia. Those are our main threats. We're not going to invade China and Russia. Those are the ones who are the nuclear threat. We're not going to do it. Every other country is pretty much, not too much of a nuclear threat. They may have one or two, but heck, they're not enough to scare us. You know what I'm saying? Even though any nuke should scare you. But what I'm saying is they know that they'll get blown out the water if they don't have any backup. They're going to get dusted. So what we have going on is these smaller countries that America can go and invade whenever they feel like removing the person that was in charge. Listen, I don't feel one way or another about the Ukrainians. I mean, do I feel sorry? I feel sorry for us who are mixed up in it, who don't have nothing to do with anything. So that's anybody around the world, no matter what their nationality is. I feel sorry for them. Like the old lady and the old man that these Russian guys blew up with a tank. So what? They're from the Ukraine or Russia or whatever they're from. Come on. How big of a threat do you think these 80-year-olds were? Not a threat. So I don't care what country you're from. If you're not running around raising Cain, then whatever. You got your ambivalent feelings, whatever. But if you're, speaking out against black people and showing hatred to black people, I don't care what age you are, then something happens to you, I got no love for you whatsoever. And we're finding out that a lot of Ukrainians, people in Poland, there's a lot of countries around the world that hate black people. They really, really hate us. They love our resources. They love our music. They love to use us for heck, anything from general labor to sports to food. There are people who eat people, to food, to shoot. They used to make shoes and coats out of us, out of black people. They used to use our skin and make, hey, come on, the lunacy. They still, I'm sure they're still doing it. There might be something in your house that's made from a black person. You just don't know because of how manufactured it is. You're like, oh, this is a leather jacket, but you don't know what it's made out of. You have no idea. You can look at the tag and take a guess of what it's made out of, but you don't know. It's made in some country, in some backwater country, or even in a first world country. You just don't know. But we know here in America that they actually made clothing out of black people. They actually ate black people. They've been eating us since way back in the Roman days. The Romans were eating black people. I mean, they would eat us, just like Game of Thrones and the Thins. That's why most of the people in Game of Thrones hated the Thins. Because they ate them when they killed them. You know what I'm saying? Even though the Magna of the Thin was my boy. But they hated the Thins. That's what I'm saying. When people do these heinous crimes, you have a serious hatred for them. But I digress. Do I think that we're going to go to war? The big difference now is you're knocking on the superpower's door. What happens when China invades Taiwan? Here's one thing I am going to say. That I thought that as far as I don't think Russia is going to challenge everybody to a nuclear war. If they do, there will be no such thing as Russia. It will be blown off the face of the earth. And that's a terrible thing because there are just people there that are just people. They have nothing to do with none of this. But of course, everyone in Europe will be affected by it because it's a nuclear bomb, and there'll be several of them. I mean, you don't only have America to contend with when it comes to, nuclear bombs. I mean, you can go all the way over there to, heck, India. They got nuclear weapons. I mean, and they're our allies, so it will be a mess, if, Russia just tries us and says, we're just going to push the button. They got plenty of nuclear weapons that are, spread all over the place. They have submarines all over the place that can release nuclear weapons and just boom. And then we got to try to shoot them down. But some of them we probably won't be able to do because they're like supersonic. It's like scramjet technology, skipping along the stratosphere and then boom, dropping down on you and then boom. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be hard to hit. So there will be crazy damage, but if they release one, they're gonna have to release them all. And if they release them all, then the tectonic plates are gonna have something to say about that, and the whole planet there'll be like 600 people left out of 7 billion and growing. And I mean, there will not be enough to start a skirmish big enough to harm the planet again. And listen, the planet doesn't care. The planet will wipe all of us out and not give one damn. The animals will come back and everything. They don't care about humans and our destructive ways. So, but nonetheless, what I will say, the good thing is, Xi, your boy Xi over there in China, he's not helping Russia. Now, Xi's and Iran decides they want to start handing over them J-30s that they got, them J-20s and whatnot. If one of them J-20s meet up with them F-22s, now we got ourselves a worldwide problem. This is not what we want to see. We don't want to see these fifth generation fighters going at it. I mean, you got these MiGs flying around, a Polish MiG up against a Russian, MiG or Sukhoi, okay. we really don't want Poland to jump in it because Poland's part of NATO. But if you got a MiG coming straight out of Kiev or wherever that is over there, it's like, okay, you two are fighting against each other, boom, y'all shooting each other down. But Poland is now giving the MiGs. Poland is giving the MiGs to Ukraine. They're furnishing them MiGs. It just ain't gonna take much from that, from that. And then you have the European Typhoon. They're trying to put those. Well, they're going to put those in action. Once you got those Typhoons shooting down the MiG-29s, it's only a matter of seconds, very few seconds, before Russia makes a phone call to not only one of, but they have the largest. They have a submarine that's the largest submarine in the dang water. And when they make that phone call, old Yuri, old Tarvich it's going to be hunt for Red October. They're going to have to make that decision. And Russian Navy soldiers have been in this position before where they were told to, go ahead and blow it all up. And everybody agreed except one guy. And he was like, nah, I'm not pushing a button. Because if he would have went ahead and turned that key with everyone else, that nuke would have popped out and then it would have all popped off. Now here's the interesting part. Somebody else had said this, and I've been thinking about it too. I'm like, listen, you guys, if the European nations decide to go to war and drag other European nations in with them, and then, of course, drag their allies in, and everybody blows up everybody, there's only going to be a few countries left that aren't going to get hit because they ain't got nothing to do with anything. And the one continent that's going to be alive and kicking is Africa. Now, when you think about that, you think about white people being at the mercy of the Africans. And the irony of that is just, it's beautiful. No, you can't come into our country because we know you're going to come here and enslave and destroy. You've been doing it for years. Just think about the Africans just telling all the white people, get out of Africa. Just think if all those nuclear bombs went off and wiped out, billions of Europeans, and then they all decided we're going to go to Africa. Africans are going to be like, you can't come here. And we have a standing army. You wiped out all your resources. You wiped out all of your people. No, we're not. No, you can't come here. We're going to close our borders all the way around the continent. And then Africa actually does something that has only happened once. Actually unites up under one banner, which is, we know that's not going to happen. But at one time they did try to do this. And the one person who was going to lead them was from Nigeria. Of course, Nigeria is pretty tribal. They got rid of him real quick. And then, the Europeans pretty much made sure that there can't be one united front by the Africans. They keep us poor because they, need our resources. They keep raping and pillaging our land. They take our, people. And they're still doing this. There are still African slaves. If you haven't been, watching, there are still people fleeing from Africa and trying to get into like France. Francis Ngannou is one of those people who, was fleeing from a terrible situation and went into Spain, as a matter of fact. And it's just a hellacious trip to get into Spain. But, crossing deserts and stuff like that's still going on today. There are still Africans losing their lives, fleeing from their countries that are set upon by civil war. And the civil wars are often started by the Europeans to destabilize the country. America and other European countries are really good at destabilizing other countries because if you can't fight and you can't defend yourself, then we can take what we want. And so this is why you don't see large African armies that are all, in one accord. They have armies, but they're very, very small. They're no match for them in the sky or in the water. They have no nuclear submarines. They have just a few gunships. They'll be taken out so quick, it's not even funny. They don't have F-35s. They have the old, the one army I saw, they can't afford a $30 million F-35. They're not going to buy an F-22 stealth fighter. You realize what kind of resources it takes to buy one of these and we have 11,000 F-35s. That's just the F-35. I mean, just think of we have 11,000 of them and we're still making more. You know what they got over there, some of those African countries? Their jets are the old, they look like the old Navy Harrier jump jets. Like they come from Vietnam War. Like they have jets that are, so far outdated. They're like second stage, fighters. They're just so outdated. It's not. It wouldn't even be a fight. No serious radar. None of that new TAC radar that we got right now that we spend so much money on. That's why the airplanes cost so much. It's the radar systems. So I'm saying that it's not even a fight, but just think if one of those old jets was the only jet in the sky, and it was well kept, even though it wasn't the fastest jet. It's the only ones in the sky, and you talk some crap, bang, you know what I'm saying? So we just need to understand that if the Europeans blow themselves up, they're going to come groveling to countries and continents that they've been pillaging for the longest, and they're going to want the help of the Africans. And of course, I'm hoping the Africans say absolutely not. You guys blew up the world. We don't want nothing to do with you. And then the Africans stop fighting themselves because the Africans have been fighting themselves because they're poor. So the Dutch, the French, the English, the Americans, they're still over in these countries and just pillaging these countries. But it would be something if the continent of Africa dodged all of those nuclear bombs and they're like the only decent continent standing. Remember the movie 2012 when all the tectonic plates start slipping and the mountains of fire, the volcanoes, just erupted. Yellowstone, went up, and then boom, Washington, Pennsylvania, all that was all gone, and Asian countries and European countries were all gone. Remember the only continents were all gone. Remember the only continent that was half decent? The only half decent one that was left was Africa. And what happened to Africa in the movie? It was raised. It was elevated. It was elevated, so tidal waves and stuff couldn't even stop it. It was just the whole continent was elevated. Like this is not far-fetched if you go ahead and throw a nuclear bomb down the Marianas Trench. It's not far-fetched for the nuclear plates to come together and project one plate, higher than it. It's just not far-fetched. And in one way we know this is because Australia, actually, the majority of that was underwater. Now, everywhere was underwater at once, but Australia, actually, there's a place in Australia called the Edge of the World. And this is a significant place for a lot of reasons. For one, the whales will go there every year, travel thousands and thousands of miles every year just to have their babies there. How do I know this? Don't ask me. But they would go in there and have the babies there. But where it is where the water meets the ground, it's a cliff that's almost, it looks like it's a half a mile down. It's such a steep drop. That cliff was actually submerged at one time. It was pushed up. Where the ocean meets that is actually elevated. And like I said, the reason how we know this is because the land, the land part of it, there are more fossils of dinosaurs that were on the ground found there. You know, there were a bunch of fossils that are found there of plesiosaurs, and then you'll find a T-Rex dinosaur. Just like, wait a minute, this is not. It's just like finding. It's just like finding a lion skeleton and then finding a blue whale skeleton in the same spot. You hear how far-fetched that is? Like, how is there a T-Rex here and there's a plesiosaur here? A plesiosaur is an aquatic animal that was large enough to actually eat a T-Rex, if you want to know. There were two different sizes, and the most reference to the plesiosaur is actually the Loch Ness Monster. That's what they think is in the loch. They think it's a plesiosaur. It has 4 fins that it sails through the water with, and it's really, really huge. It has a long neck, you know, like a brontosaurus, and a bunch of teeth. It has a huge head, and that's one of them. The other one is actually smaller, so there's actually 2 different ones, but they're the same species. So we know that the Earth can push itself up, you know, raise itself up if the tectonic plates are messed with. And I'm just saying, this is, I mean, it's hypothetical, but it's not, because we know the Earth can do this. And of course, there's a worst case scenario, and the majority of us won't even be here to see it. But nonetheless, somebody will survive. Also in that movie, it was talking about how every 640 years, something happens and resets the planet. Now, the Hopis, the Incas, the Mayans, and all these other Indians had talked about it. And there's always some kind of catastrophic event that resets the whole planet and kills a bunch of people. And then, you know, it's a whole do-over from there. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But I'm saying that if we start dropping nuclear weapons, the nuclear weapons, it's not going to be like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, when we look at some of these H-bombs that they're using, hydrogen bombs, right now, Russia has dropped some of these hydrogen bombs. And the thing about these bombs and they're calling this a war crime for him to use these bombs. Now, the thing about these bombs are they're basically set so they don't destroy every building, but they're basically set that it destroys every one. So there are 2 explosions when it comes to these bombs. And the second explosion actually sends out a force of energy that collapses your lungs. So it's like, why are we tearing down every building when we really want to kill everyone? Well, we have this bomb now, so the bomb will go off, boom, and then the second explosion, boom, and then when that goes off and it hits you, it actually, you know, collapses your lungs and pretty much kills you from the inside out. And then now you have just a whole bunch of dead people. So we know that Putin has already used this within the last couple of days. He's only 12 days into the war. Also, it's 12 days into the war. Everybody thinks that, you know, this 4 mile long of tanks are just stalled and they're not going to go anywhere. They're running out of food. They're running out of this. They're running out of that. We seem to forget that Russia is part of the Ukraine. It's not like they're coming across the water. They can easily resupply them. I mean, not easy, but they can resupply those. They can just fly in a couple, you know, C-131s, big ass planes, and then boom, resupply just like that. Like, they're not out of it like you think they are. And we have another report saying that only like 10% of their military has actually been used. Look, people, this is not over. And it can get worse before it gets better. Now, they say they're calling a ceasefire, but the thing about it is, even if you call a ceasefire, if Putin doesn't pull out of there is no ceasefire. Now, when I was in the military, and I say this all the time, the military does not do anything for nothing. If we make a move, if we have a plan to do something, and we actually deploy, then something's going to happen. Whatever we deployed for, it's not going to be like we came way out here, spent millions of dollars, let's forget about it. It just doesn't work like that, people. If he has a 4-mile line of tanks and military equipment, he's going in there and he's going to listen, for one, he's going to make it to Kiev. So let's stop acting like these people are fighting back and all these people who are going and joining them. You got people from Israel over there now. You got the Israel Special Forces, who are no longer in the service that decided they want to go over there and kill Russians. That's a big mistake. But this is already happening. They've already touched down. You got people from England who actually went over there and say, hey, I'm going to go and fight for them. Boom. They've already touched down. They're in the Ukraine right now. So you have all of these nationalities that are there to help. And I'm here to tell you 100% they're not going to help. You may knock off a couple tanks. Like they're knocking off a couple tanks because, they have new equipment that the tank's really not ready for. The tanks that they're using okay. So when I was in the military, we had something called like a bazooka, all right? And the way we use the bazooka is basically you go out to the field, you see your target, you boom, you flip up this switch, like boom, the bazooka's like this long, it's already armed, boom, you run out, it's not that heavy, you run out, you get on one knee, boom, you push this thing down, you extend it, boom, and you turn around, back blast area all clear. That means the person, because there's somebody with you, the person behind you has to not stand directly behind you. So once you say back blast area all clear, which means that person needs to clear out, you go ahead, you aim, boom. That's what we were using for tanks 30 years ago. They have two different ones now. One of them is a tow. The way they use them now is the same thing. Boom, back blast area all clear. But now instead of hitting the tank head on, what it does is it goes towards the tank, then it goes skyward, then it drops down on the tank, and then boom. And it actually explodes twice. Bang, bang. The reason why it does that is because the armor on top of the tank is thinner than the armor around the tank. Also, Russian tanks are smaller than American tanks. They're a lot smaller. They weigh a lot less, too. Another thing, the tanks that the Russians are using are all auto-loaded. So if you hit them in a certain area where the autoloader is, because you have your turret, then you have the autoloader that sits right here. It's a round thing that sits right up under it. So if you want to fire, it's turning like this. We use a human for our M1s. So we just boom, boom. That's what we use. They use an autoloader. But like I said, one of the biggest problems with those tanks is when you hit it on top, bam, bam, it can explode the whole tank. And you just, boom, the whole thing can just be disabled. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. There are some flaws in Putin's design. But, hey, what's going on, man? There are some flaws in Putin's design. Another thing is the mud. They're really not ready for the mud. Why? I can't really say they're not ready. I can say that they're going to get around it. It's not like they went and attacked an Arab country and are not used to fighting in an Arab country. This is not what's happening. Yes, sir. They're attacking a part of their own country. The Ukraine is an extension of their country. These people all speak the same language. They're brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure they got relatives that live in both countries. You got to understand that. So he so like I said, he will get in there. He will make it to Kiev. He will get rid of the puppet government that the CIA put in there. It's going to happen. And no matter how much, and another reason, another thing is America, Spain, and England, France, India, we're all supplying weaponry for the people there. Well, those people are still losing their lives. See, we're not supplying soldiers. What we did is put soldiers on the outer rim in the NATO countries. So Poland is part of NATO. So what did we do? We sent thousands of troops to Poland because they say, okay, if Russia goes in and takes Kiev, the capital, is he going to keep going and is he going to extend right into Poland, which he can do? Will he attack Poland? The answer is no. They're like, is he going to keep going? No. But if he gets support from China, then the answer is yes. But he really doesn't have a reason to go into Poland. He really doesn't have a reason to go there and kick off this whole thing. He knows that Poland is a NATO country. So you got, and another thing, he's been invading those countries, those small countries there. He's been invading them. Like this is nothing new. He's been going in and taking these countries back. He's been doing this. So he doesn't want America, or excuse me, he doesn't want NATO, and he doesn't want the Ukraine to be a part of NATO. Also, there's some stuff about Nazis and neo-Nazis there. The people who wear the Black Sun patch, he wants to get rid of them too, and all that other stuff. But a lot of this government, like I said, this is a puppet government that was set up by the CIA. So that's why this is so important, because this is not a small country in Libya that we're just going to go over and take their oil. That's not what this is anymore. This is a major power who has more nuclear weapons than we do. And so this is why, Biden keeps saying, we're not going to send our troops in there, but we're going to send you help, because it's like, why do we care so much about the Ukraine, some small country that doesn't do? No, you got to understand, for one, if NATO gets a hold of that country, now you're sitting in your enemy's backyard. They don't want no part of that. They're like, no, we'll kill all of you before NATO comes here. We'll kill every single one of you before we give up one more country. They're not even happy that Poland is a part of this program. So Putin is just like, do it, and I will push the button. No, we're not doing it. And this is why we're on the outside looking in, because this is what America and the CIA does. They set up these puppet countries and these puppet governments, and nobody is the wiser. But the president of the Ukraine he's not there because of he was voted in fairly. He was there because he took it over, and he had help taking it over from the USA. We put him there. Okay, so before you go, I feel sorry for those people and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, feel sorry for the people, but understand exactly what's going on. This is some government crooked stuff that's actually going on, and the people are caught in the middle of it. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it is. And like I said, you can look at Gaddafi, you can look at Saddam Hussein, you can look at Al-Qaeda, all of these people, the same thing. They were all puppet governments that were being controlled by the CIA, just like these major drug companies, the cartels, all this other stuff, all controlled by the CIA. But we know exactly who the top cartel person is. We know where they're at. We know their family. We know where they live. We know this. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, look up the Fast and Furious when Obama was in office, and he basically wanted to know who was the leader of the cartel. So what they did is they sent the cartel the AK-47s. and they had special serial numbers on them, like all weapons do, and they tracked the serial numbers, and they found out where the weapons were going to, and it wasn't even a bit. We didn't even know what was going on until one of those weapons actually killed one of the border police. And when it killed that border police officer, you know, investigations go as they do, and they start tracking where this weapon came from, and then that whole thing blew up. And Eric Holder, who was the Secretary of Defense, had to take responsibility, and they removed him. These are all puppet governments. The biggest thing about this one is it's on our enemy's backyard. And if like this thing could get ugly real quick. Like right now it's only affecting us in gas. It could be a lot worse really, really fast, especially since we're supplying them. Now, another thing I mentioned in my other video, I don't know how much of these videos you guys watch. I just give you guys this information and let you guys, if you listen to it, you do. I mentioned that the Lusitania, the way we got into World War II. Remember the Lusitania and the Titanic? Well, the Titanic and the Lusitania were both built by White Star Line. If you ever heard that song, Black Star Line, everybody come along and free your mind. That Black Star Line was made because of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey said we should take our own ships and get on them and sail back to Africa, and he called it the Black Star Line. And the reason why he called it the Black Star Line is because there was an actual White Star Line who made the Lusitania and made the Titanic. They were sister ships. They were both the same size. As a matter of fact, one was named the other at one time. So, of course, we know what happened to the Titanic, but the Lusitania was actually a ferry boat, and they were using, it made it seem like there were just people going from one, back and forth, and, nothing was going on when the World War popped off. But it turns out that they were supplying weapons to the enemy of the German countries, or the continent of Germany, or the country of Germany. And when the Germans found out about it, they sank it. That's how we got into World War II. Of course, there were some other things. But once you kill a couple thousand people, boom, now we're in here. Now, if you take that information and look at about a year and a half or 2 years ago, Putin was in, I forgot what country he was in, when he went and invaded another country, and America went over there and they started shelling that country. And Putin says, if you guys kill any of our men, we're going to start shooting at you. So the threat of Russia and America, these threats have been going on for a long time. I mean, one of our top generals even told Russia, he was like, listen, if you send those bombers, because they had 2 bombers going towards France, 2 supersonic bombers. And he said, look, if these bombers come anywhere near us, we're going to beat you, into another existence. So these threats have been going on, but we have to understand why they're going on, like what these people really want. And like I said, you guys can check my facts. You can look up all the stuff if you want. It's a lot of information, but you can look it up and look up White Star Line and find out whatever happened to White Star Line. Eventually, that guy went out of business. He ended up, living on an island broke. But his broke and our broke is 2 different brokes. But nonetheless, that's how we got into World War II. Now, if we look at the White Star Line situation and go, okay, well, if we were supplying the enemy of someone else, and we were supplying them, and then they blew it up, and then we jumped into the fray, that's the same thing that you're looking at. Hold on, I'll get to that in a second. That's the same thing you're looking at now. We're supplying millions and millions of dollars to the Ukrainians to fight a war that they're going to lose. They're going to definitely lose this war. What we should have did was supplied humanitarian efforts instead of weaponry. What we should have did was evacuated all the Ukrainians out of the city and let the ones who want to fight say, look, you fight, you're on your own. We're not going to resupply you. However, if you want to leave, you should leave now. And left the city a ghost town, but intact. That's what they should have did. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to fight, we think we're going to win. We're going to, hit you with these toes and they're going to blow up your tanks. We're going to, slaughter your supply lines. Look, 90% of the army that went into the Ukraine is still functioning. 90%. The stuff that you see in the Ghost of Kiev and all this other bullcrap, it's all bullcrap. It's all going to fall down on them. And they're going to get a lot of people killed that didn't need to die. Russia is going to stomp the Ukraine into another existence. It's going to happen. And if they get real pissed off, they're going to obliterate it and then restart. They will leave that place in a dust. They will leave it like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm telling you, if you piss Putin off, it's going to happen. They will release a bomb on that place that will knock all the wind out, all this happy talk about people fighting back. It will be no competition. No competition whatsoever. And it will happen. That's what they should do. They should go in there and say, everybody who wants to leave, leave now. And they should start this huge humanitarian effort and then negotiate with Putin and say, listen, you want the country? You can have the country. But let us have the people. And let the people start somewhere else. And it's not hard to do. They could do this. They could do it with all these nations coming together. Boom, they could do it. And that's what they should do. Because Poland, he wants the country. Also, he wanted, they built a dam. Ukraine built a dam that they shouldn't have. And he's been warning them to let that water come through there and stop and help the irrigation that's going into, parts of Russia. Like I said, they're right next to each other. And they decided, screw you, we're not going to do it. For one, they threw over the government that he had already set there. You understand, a lot of those countries that are around Russia are all under Putin's guidance. They're under his, watchful eye. So even though they're not as powerful as he is, they're still, under his regime pretty much. Ukraine submitted all of their pretty much nuclear weapons to Russia. Why would they do that? Why would they give up some of the defense they have in case Russia want, because the government that was there is no longer there. The government that was there was for Russia. They were just like, yeah, we're all with you. We don't want to be part of USSR, but hey, we can all function together, and it's all cool. What happened? We removed them. United States removed them. They came in and said, we're going to put this person here. We're going to remove you. And they locked them up. You think that didn't piss Putin off? Look, the United States knows what they're doing. They knew this war was coming. You can even hear people talking about it like Alex Jones. Alex Jones was talking about this over a year ago. And he says in January, he said in February, we're going to go to war. There's going to be a war over there in the Ukraine. He knew it because these events are all tied together. It's just a chain of events that happens. And you can see all of them playing out. Look, when all this is over, if it doesn't go to the big show, and when did we go into Africa and take out Gaddafi? What was that? 10 years ago? Another 10 years. You just look at the average. About every 10 years, the same thing happens. When I was in the service, I was 19. No, when I was 20, 21. I was 21. We invaded Iraq or whatever that was. We invaded them because of weapons of mass destruction. Boom, we invaded them. 10 years later, we went over there and Daddy Bush. Okay, first it was Bush's dad, Bush Sr. Then it was his son. Within 10 years or more. I don't know what the exact time script is, but nonetheless. And then 10 years later, boom, we go into Africa. Not 10 years later, you look at it's like 7 to 10 years for every single one of these wars. And it just plays out all the same. Okay, what's your thoughts on Brittany Griner? Okay, so the Brittany, I was listening to the Reluctant Nabi, as I do, because he sends me links all the time. Big ups to Reluctant Nabi. Go check him out. I was listening to Reluctant Nabi and was trying to get some of his perspective. And he was making a comparison to there are actually male prisoners over there also who are American and are black. And I don't think they're over there for as serious as a crime, but nobody's talking about them. They're talking about these two women, Brittany Griner and her wife. Now, I did not know that it's some kind of oil. It's weed, but it's in an oil form. I didn't know it was a crime to have it. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. In America, in some parts of America, they have decriminalized weed. The same thing that they've been putting black people in jail for. Yeah, Desert Shield. Oh, I was Desert Storm. Then there was Desert Shield. So the same thing they've been putting black people in jail for the longest time, and then giving them extended sentences of 20 years for, a nickel bag or whatever. You can go right up there in Denver or whatever it is, and they can smoke weed right in front of the cops. It could light up. Being that weed has starting to become decriminalized all over the nation, hash oil, yeah. It's still, okay, so weed and hash, to me, is the same thing, although some drug head to get on here and say, no, it's not. But it's an illegal drug is what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is America has loosened its grip on, good afternoon, peace and blessings, Star, has loosened its grip on weed and hash and stuff like that, right? And they even made it medicinal. So people are like, hey, this is medicinal weed or hemp or whatever, right? Now they're doing this, but not everybody is following suit. And I think this is what happened. I think I'm giving Griner the benefit of the doubt. For one, she was told not to even go over there. She went anyway. She plays basketball. She's a professional basketball player. Now, you go to the airport. See, this is my biggest issue with this case. If you have not checked with the border, if you have not checked with the police, their version of the FBI, so on and so forth, if you have not checked with them and find out how they're doing things in that country, well, like, can I carry a thing of toothpaste now? Because you can't, because you can't carry certain ounces of toothpaste even on a flight. Can I carry that now? Like, if I took this on a flight, and this is oil for my hair, this is a no-go. They're going to take this and confiscate this from you. They're going to look in it. They're going to look at the contents. They're going to smell it. The dog's going to smell it. And they're going to say, oh, okay, it's tea tree oil. But being that this is in 4 ounces, you can't carry this. And they're not going to put me in jail for this. But we all know that we can't do this. We all know we can't do this. We know this. All right. So if you take something that is pretty much still illegal here, but even though it's getting its grip a little loosened, to another country and you don't know that it's illegal, because it's illegal pretty much everywhere except in what's that European nation where weed is, Amsterdam or something like that. You don't know, but you probably think it's probably illegal, and you go to the airport, one of the most heavily guarded places on the planet now. There are military people at airports here in America in military suits. Regular private specialist sergeants are in them like this. The last time I flew into, heck, I think it was Washington, there were military guys standing there with M16A2 air-cooled rifle, 7.5 pounds. I recognize the weapon because it's the same weapon that we had. I'm like, wait a minute, why are they so deep? Like, why? So you can believe that Russia has the same fear of people blowing up their planes, people sabotaging their stuff. They have the same drug problem as everybody else does. You know this, but you try them anyway. See, this is F around and find out. That's what this is. Britney knew she was taking a chance. She knew it. She got caught. She got caught, and now they're trying to make her out to be almost a political prisoner. And I'm not buying it. Like, I'm not sitting here. Look, if she gets tried, she could face 10 years. If she gets tried, which she will get tried, she could face 10 years. Let's bring this into perspective. This is a country that hates us. Now, if we look at another country who they're in league with, who they're allies with, North Korea, what happened to that white dude who removed the sign? Remember that kid that removed the sign? Some of their propaganda? He saw the sign. He thought he was in America. He was like, I'm white. I can do what I want in your country. And he thought it was a joke. He thought he was like, it was a prank. And he removed the sign, boom, and thought it was a joke. The police caught up to him. And they tried him. And he was begging for his life. And America knew that he was begging. We knew his parents, everything. That kid was begging for his life. And they thought, oh, he's white. He's showing crocodile tears. They're going to let him go. They put him in prison, and he was dead in less than a year. Dead. This is a 20-something-year-old healthy male. Dead. That guy is dead. And then they turn around and try to sue the country of North Korea for billions of dollars for that kid being dead. No, this kid knew you cannot go to North Korea and mess around. He was well aware of that, but he did it anyway, and he thought he could get away with it, and boom, F around and find out. You play stupid games, you win stupid prize. We're talking about a regime that, we're talking about Kim Jong-un or whoever his name is. He killed his uncle and his staff and fed them to dogs. You think he's going to put up with your bull crap because you're white? This guy's been threatening America for the longest time. You think he cares? No, he doesn't care. Not whatsoever. Dennis Rodman, who's known to be an upstart, just a free loving, free caring man. I mean, a guy wore a wedding dress at one time. Nonetheless, is the best rebounder ever in in the NBA. Just a freak of an athlete. He goes over to the same country and they love him. You know why? Because he respected that country. We all know that Dennis Rodman doesn't play by the rules, but when he left from America, he went to North Korea, he was yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full. He played by the rules and he had a great time with our enemy, with America's enemy, because he's not an enemy to us, to me. He had a great time with him and then was invited back. You see what I mean? If Brittany knew what she was doing, she knew what she was doing, but she thought because she's American, yeah, he should have got more credit. Dude was absolutely, he was great. He couldn't make a shot to save his life, but he didn't have to. But Brittany knew what she was doing, and this is why I don't feel too sorry for her. That's just my opinion. I think that if you know you have an illegal substance and you roll up into an airport, there's a good chance you're going to get caught. And if you get caught in another country, especially one that hates America, then you're risking your life. And in some cases, we've had some cases like this where, the people were never seen again. They've made movies about it. Like the these 2 white girls who decided to go to some foreign country. I don't know what happened to them. I don't think they made it home. And unfortunately, white women are really good for doing stuff like this. Women think that stuff just can't happen to them. Men are well aware. We don't have this, I think I'll talk my way out of it, type of cavalier attitude. We know that we're a threat wherever we go. Men know this. We're well aware. We can look at another man. One warrior can look at another warrior, and we can tell if we cross a line, it's on and popping. We know this. We know if we go to some of these prisons, we're not getting out of there. No matter what president says what. Look, Rambo's not coming to get you out of there. Rambo gets his head blown off. Square. Right now, today. Nobody with big muscles are going to come in and save you. That's just not how it works. How it works is you go in there and you obey the rules. You obey the laws of the land. That's what the Bible even tells you. Obey the laws of the land. He tells you that because you can go into somewhere and not come out. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you because you went in there ignorant. You can't even go to some of these 3rd and 4th world countries and act a fool. You'll never make it out of there. You will never make it out of there. Go to Thailand and say something bad about the king and see what happens to you. First, they're going to, if you're lucky, they're going to get rid of you. They're going to say, go back to wherever you came from. Then they're going to ban you from the whole country. And that's being nice. So, do I think Brittany's going to come home? Yeah. But do I think she's going to be there for a while? Absolutely. The situation in Korea, he should have got more credit. Well, I think Dennis Rodman was an ambassador. When he did that, you know what he showed us? That my enemy and the enemy of, the white people, we don't have the same enemies. We don't. The Russians aren't trying to kill black people. They may not like us, but they ain't over there trying to blow us up. As long as we don't take up arms against them, they'll be like, get on out the way. This has nothing to do with you. That's what Dennis Rodman showed us. I mean, have you ever seen Kim Jong Il so happy? He was happy. He was happy when Dennis Rodman visited him. He was like, yeah, come in here. This guy is a killer. And him and Dennis Rodman are just like kicking it, pounding around. You think Dennis Rodman was scared? No. Because he's smart and he's well traveled. He's been in a lot of different countries on his own, without an army. How much political power do you think Dennis Rodman has? Got no political power? Yeah, it's not our war. They have nothing to do with us. Even the Africans over there now, the Ukrainians said, we're going to give you guns, you're going to fight for us. They're like, no, we're not. They said, we're not going to fight for you because the Russians are going to think we're with NATO. In other words, they're going to think that we're American. If the Russians think we're American, they're going to kill us first. No. You're going to fight this war. And they got the hell out of there. Now, do I think that we're going to go to war? I think it's highly possible. I think with the history of America and the way the last World War started and the First World War, we weren't even invited to that party. The first damn World War, we weren't invited to that party. We weren't invited to that. We did some old dumb stuff. We got into that war. A lot of these major wars that happened is because America just decided they wanted to be into it. And I'm going to tell you why they decide this. One, resources. Two, the weapons that they build. Once again, an F-35B is a $30 million plane. An F-4 Tomcat, same thing. Same thing. Even the Hornets that we got, the ones that the Air Force fly, you ever see the Air Force show and all that? Those are Hornets. The one that Tom Cruise was flying in, that's an F-15. Those F-15 are what, third, fourth generation? They're third generation fighters. They're redoing them now, and they're putting stealth on those. Like, they didn't get rid of those. It's the fastest thing we got. They're faster than the F-22 and the F-35. But these planes cost so much money. They don't build these planes to be casual. They build them, they sell them to other countries other than our enemies. This is why the one that was just lost in China, in the South China Sea, China is trying to find that plane. They're trying to find that plane so they can deconstruct it and find out how the stealth works in it. They want to know all these secrets. We don't sell planes to our enemies, but we sell them to our allies. So, if you see an Arab country that has F-35s, well, those are built from Lockheed Martin. Those are Lockheed Martin airplanes. They're not made over there in Switzerland or something like that. You know what I'm saying? When you start seeing planes from over there, you're going to see the Typhoon. Those are your Eurofighters. But that 35 and that 22 and that F-14 and F-15 and the Hornets, those are all Lockheed Martin. They come from us. We build those planes, we sell them. Make a lot of money doing it. So you're going to see, hold on a second, I got to remove this person. So here's what I think. It's just an opinion. But here's what I think. All the money and resources, I think it's just one big game. It's kind of like Battleship for some of you people who are old like me. I think it's all a game. I think it is. They build these. Okay, if you go back to Japan, when we went to war with Japan, and we killed a bunch of them by blowing up Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What did Japan do to provoke us? Tell you what they did. They flew their Zero fighters down there to Pearl Harbor and they blew it up. And one ship killed 1,100 people. One ship sank it right there in the harbor. It was our major ship. I forgot what the name of it was. The Arizona or something like that. It was a huge ship. There were 1,100 soldiers on it, and it was docked. And just think of it was full. Just think of that ship was full. There were 1,100 soldiers on it, and when it sank, you could still hear soldiers banging on the metal walls in Morse code because they were surrounded by water, but they were in airlocked compartments, and they died of starvation. And they died of starvation or ran out of air. But this is a huge ship, so there's enough air to be in there for a while. So they're hoping there's this America. Somebody can come down to the bottom of the harbor and get us out of there. We got equipment to do that back in 1948. And they're banging and they're banging and they're banging and nobody comes to rescue them. Right there. We're not in the middle of the ocean. We're right here at Pearl Harbor. You mean to tell me somebody can't raise a ship or come down there and depressurize and all this other stuff and get us out of there? Bull crap. This is America. We could do it. Never happened. They let those people die. Why? Because they needed the drama. Did our president know that Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed? And if you ask around to the soldiers, after it was all over, they go, we knew. We knew it was going to get bombed. We knew it. Our president knew it was going to get bombed. And they got all this hero stuff to me. All these heroes. Our president knew it was going to get bombed. What happened in 9/11? When 9/11 hit, where was our president? Our president was talking to kids. And when they told him what happened and the whole event was going on, what did he do? He sat there. And he looked straight ahead like he didn't hear anything. America is on fire. The trading district is on fire. There are children blown to smithereens. There are people who make millions of dollars jumping out of the windows downtown New York. The president is sitting there. The Pentagon was hit. A mysterious plane hit the Pentagon that we never found. The president is sitting there. What happened to that plane in Pennsylvania? Never found it. The president is still sitting there. Why? Because he knew. This case is no different. They know. When they built these F-35s and woo everybody with stealth and speed and what they can carry, and they flash all this in front of your face, and you think America's safe, you have to understand, the more weapons that they build, the more unsafe we are. Bruce Wayne, before Bruce Wayne, how many criminals were in Gotham? Before Bruce Wayne, do you think that Martha Wayne and James, or whatever his name was, do you think they heard of the Joker? No. They were just gangsters. They were just gangsters. There was no Two-Face. There was no Mothman. There was no all these other ridiculous. There was no Harley Quinn. There was just a bunch of gangsters running around with guns. And that was it. And if you kept your mouth shut and you stayed to the shadows, you'd be all right. They were trying to stay to the shadows and got caught. And one of those gangsters saw them, did not recognize who they were, and blew both of them away right in front of their kid. Then Bruce Wayne decided he's going to go and avenge his parents all the way until the day he dies. But he's going to do it in a way that what he said was he wanted to cause fear. The Batman outfit was not made so he could protect himself. It was made because he wanted people to be afraid of him. Yeah, the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, and look at the progression of the way his enemies came out. Look at how aggressive they first were, and then now what are they? Megalomaniacs who just don't want to kill one person. They want to slaughter out. The Joker tries to slaughter out the whole town. Clayface on his own can take on a whole army. Why? Because Batman is more advanced and more advanced and more advanced. Then he hired other people to be like him, and they became more advanced, more better fighters. Ra's al Ghul was trying to take over the whole world. You understand what I'm saying? The more of these weapons that we have and we build, we've spent, what, $560 billion on weaponry? Where'd that money come from? Our GDP? Doesn't all come from our GDP, which is gross domestic product. Some of it comes from us, taken from us right out of our banks. Illegal forfeiture by the police. The government is the ones who sanction illegal forfeitures. When people don't get their money back just for traveling with $10,000, the police can take your $10,000 and use it for the police, but they have to go through the government to do it. That's where illegal forfeiture comes from. So the government keeps part of the money. They keep, I think, 10% of the money, then issue 80% back to the police, and then tell the person who they took the money from, you're going to have to hire a lawyer in order to get this money back. 90% of the time, they get to keep whatever money they find. The police are jacking us. They're even just going straight and saying, hey, what's going on? They're going right into your bank account and saying, boom, we're taking this money. 10, 20, 30,000 missing. One guy who hit the lottery, he had hundreds of thousands missing one day. Just gone. No explanation. Remember FDIC? Bullcrap. Your money's not protected if the government takes it. And their excuse was, the way you're depositing this money makes us think that there's something illegal going on. We're talking about mom and pop donut shops. What do you think they're doing with this money? The CIA has a stealth plane. There are 2 black birds in the sky. One of them was made by the Air Force. The other one was made by the CIA. It's a spy plane. Where'd they get the money to build that? The CIA is the one who set up the cartels and all these puppet governments. When you see these fancy airplanes that could do all this stuff, you should be very, very afraid. Because the more powerful we get, the more powerful our enemies get. And by the way, we don't have the most nuclear bombs on the planet. Person who owns the most nuclear bombs on the planet is Putin. He owns thousands of them, thousands, and they're all over the place. They have the largest. See, they have the largest submarine in the water. That submarine is carrying all nuclear weapons. We don't know where it's at. As a matter of fact, he has three of the same type of submarine. I think they're called Typhoon class. I think they're Typhoon class. They're huge, huge. It's so huge. I mean, they got swimming pools in them. When you look at our Ohio class submarines, you're like, that's a big submarine. Nothing to a Typhoon. Nothing. A Typhoon nuclear submarine, nothing. And we're talking about something that can stay underwater for 6 months or more. And the only reason why it would need to resurface, for food. That's it. Other than that, I can stay underwater and just keep going. Now we got unmanned stuff out there. Shoot. If they have an unmanned Typhoon class, and like I said, there's three of them. Two of them are docked. You know why? Because they didn't need them. They cost so much money to make. They said, no, we're going to leave those two docked. We're not going to finish them until we need them. And they got one of them running around out there somewhere. Now, of course, they got other submarines, but this thing is huge. Armed to the teeth. We don't know where it's at. We have no idea where it's at. No idea. The last submarine that we knew where it was, other than in the harbor where we could see them, is the Kirks. The Kirks was a nuclear submarine that just recently is pretty much gone because there was a accident and it blew itself up. And they tried to cover it up and said it was an exercise or something like that until people finally, you guys can read the story about the Kirks, but it's gone and every soldier on it died. Other than that, we don't know where these submarines are. Not unless we're shadowing them, and that would not be smart. Not unless they surface, we don't know where these submarines are. So if he pushes the button, they could be anywhere. And they run silent, and they could just be sitting anywhere. They could be sitting off the coast of Alaska. That's one of ours. Just think about if they blew up Alaska. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Let's be real here. If we go to war, like, it's going to get really ugly really quick. And we could be looking at not only nuclear fallout, you'd be looking at massive tidal waves, earthquakes, and I'm sure they would affect the Gulf Stream and the jet stream directly. So you'd be looking at tornadoes that are just ridiculous. And then you'd be looking at hurricanes that, would be hundreds of miles wide and would, come ashore and not stop. Now, of course, hurricanes need water, but I saw a diagram recently, and they were talking about if you flooded, if the ocean rose, what was it, 1,600 feet or something like that, what would all be underwater? And the loss of life would be 2% of the planet. That's if the ocean decided to, raise up. All the coastal gone, wiped out. These things are highly, highly, highly possible if we go to nuclear war. Highly possible. Florida would be gone. All that down there, that would all be gone. Billions of people would lose their life in an instant. So even where I live in the Midwest, but I live, next to a military facility. I live next to a supply. You think they wouldn't target it? Let me tell you something. Every day at 12 o'clock, we have a siren that goes off that sounds like there's a nuclear bomb about to drop. Every day it goes off. Downtown Columbus. Every day. You think they made that on accident? Yeah, we're just gonna annoy everybody every day with this. We're just gonna scare everybody with this War of the World type of 1948 siren that pretty much lets you know that, France is about to be shelled and, B-52s are about to drop bombs down on, French cities and just blow them all to hell. Because that's what happened when those sirens went off. No, that siren's there for a damn good reason. Because they know they have a military supply chain here. That's why. They know this. They know this is a spot that could be hit. And it's in the Midwest. So I'm saying, just drink that in. Sometimes we don't think that something can happen to us until it does. We have, pets. We got dogs, and we're like, our dog doesn't bite. Until it does. And then you're surprised that something that can do something did it. And you're going, what did I do to make my dog bite me? A dog that knows me. I'm friends with. I feed this dog. I take care of this dog. This Rottweiler, 150 pounds. Why did Smokey bite me? Because it could. That's why I bet you. Almost tore your damn arm off. Didn't need to be provoked. It knew it had the power to rip you to shreds. So it decided to take a bite out of you one day. I'm just saying, all these fancy weapons and stuff that we got, you would think it's to protect America, but 9/11 really showed that America is not protecting America. There were more people killed in 9/11 than there were in Pearl Harbor. To make it clear, there are more people killed by our own president than there were by an enemy across the water. They had to travel across the water and fly at low altitude. So our radar, so-called, couldn't see them. There are more people that died in 9/11, broad daylight, than there were during Pearl Harbor when a bunch of Zeros flew under the radar and attacked us. You think you're safe, but you're not. And what can you do about it? I don't know. Leave the country. I don't know. Leave the country if you want to. Go to someplace quiet. Go to an island somewhere. But most of us, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay here because this is what we're used to. This is America. This is what America does. There are things that go on here in America that we like, and we know that we're not going to be able to do them other places. There are amenities that America has that other countries don't have. I mean, it sucks, but you get used to. I mean, you get used to your situation, and you're like, "This is where I'm at. I'm not going to go anywhere." So yeah, we can go to war very easily, and you got to ask yourself, how will you survive if boots on the ground actually happen? I, for one, don't think boots on the ground will happen. Here's what I do think will happen. Here's what I think will happen. I think the American army will come to your door long before the Russians will. And they're going to give you a choice. They're going to give you a choice. They're going to say, sign here on the dotted line or be deceased. This is your choice. What do you want to do? That's going to be that. There's not going to be a negotiation. There's not going to be a clause. It's going to be, you're coming with us. Do you think the government is not in control of Facebook? You think the government is just, we don't know nothing about Facebook. We don't use Facebook at all. They know where you eat, when you go out to eat. They know where you shop. Every time you scan that card, use your Kroger's card. That Kroger's card. Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet. But he's the richest man on the planet because his stocks, how much his stocks are worth. He sells cars. But under that, he actually sells and collects information. An autonomous car can only work if it has information. If it's able to read information and process that information and then send that information somewhere. Collect it, collate it, look at it again, reprocess information, and then get better and better and better and better. That's what every Tesla on the road is doing. It's collecting information. They are a data company. That's what Tesla is. It's an information company. It's a data company. They use this data, regurgitate the information, and then send it back out and collect more data. This is why every year, like any car, the model is better than the next. Well, a Tesla model is able to collect more and more information without even becoming a new model. It gets more and more. You understand what I'm saying? The more it's on the road, the more information it gets. My computers don't do that. I own a 07 Chevy. It's not collecting information, even though there are computers on it. But a Tesla is collecting information, and it's sending that information back to its, servers at Tesla. That information goes into their newer cars and also goes into the cars that they already have on the road. Your telephone gets updated. And when the updates come, your telephone says, this phone has this new feature on it. When it does that a couple years, What happens to this phone? It can no longer process all of the information that's being stored on it. Then you need a new phone. This is why there's an iPhone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and they come out year after year, and sometimes twice a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. It's because of the information that's being collected on them is bigger and bigger and bigger, and they need a system to run it faster and faster. But I'm gonna show you something. You know what this is? This is a Compaq 64. And it still works. Compaq 64. Has all its guts. Look at that. I have 2 of these. Still runs. I can fire it up right now. Compaq 64. Fire it up. I got 2 of them. I can't hook that up to the internet. We all know why. The internet is moving too fast for it. Can't do it. Below me, I have another Compaq that came out in 2006. That Compaq came out in 1998. 98, 2006, had another computer that came out I think like 2010, something like that. No longer have it. I'm saying that the information that is collected by Tesla is being used. The information also by Facebook is being used. Both of these companies are being used by the government. That information is used not necessarily for you. Okay, so since you had Facebook, what's changed in your life? You've been able to connect to people. You've been able to sell stuff. But is it changed, like has it made you healthier? Has Facebook made you smarter? Has it came in your house and made your house just better? No, you went on to Facebook and then you used its amenities and you made something of, you utilized it. And you did whatever you did with it. So you helped it do something for you. Other than that, you stayed off of Facebook, it did nothing for you. However, when you go on to Facebook, that information you collect helps who's ever collecting the information know more about you. So they can take this information and use it against you. Very easily. Instagram. A lot of criminals today are found on Instagram. Why? Because they stream a lot. They actually stream some of the criminal stuff they do, which I don't understand. But the police watch the enemy's Instagram. And then one guy was picked up at his grandmother's house and he was live streaming and the police were at the front door and the grandmother said, he's not here. And they said, we know he's here. because he's on Instagram. We know where his location is. We know he's right in here. She had to concede and let him in and take the boy. You guys understand what I'm saying? Everything that glitters is not gold. The stuff that's happening now with the war and the potential of this war will actually be against you. None of it will be for you. If we go into war with Russia, it's not going to benefit the American people. It's not going to do not one bit of good for you. We're never going to look at Kiev and go, Kiev is free. Thank God Kiev is free. There's not going to be a band and marching and clowns and parading about. There's not going to be a bunch of black people going, thank God Kiev is free. We don't care. But if we keep pushing the Kremlin and he decides to take it to another level, we're all going to pay for it. All of us. All of us. And all it takes is one of them, MiG-29s to get shot down by, an F-22. An F-22 can fire at you from 150 miles away. But we don't have to be in Russia to kill Russians. We don't have to be in Kiev to shoot down one of these planes. We could be off the coast of the Black Sea. We're going to be right off the coast of the Black Sea and fire inland with a weapon that shows up like a pin drop. This is why the F-22 is so deadly, because it can hit you from so far away. It can hit multiple targets. It also can control other F-35s, F-22s. It can take control of your airplane and fly a whole squadron with one airplane. And it can fire at you before you even know what's going on. I'm just saying, if you understand the complications behind that and the implications behind that, you're like, oh my God, it's not are we going to go to war? It's just when. It's when Sergeant Parker is going to get that call over his headphones, who's entering in to the Black Sea off of an Nimitz-class aircraft carrier that's sitting 300 miles out. And he picks up an Su-20 or 30, and he sees this supersonic airplane, and his computer says this is an Su-20. We know the call sign of this Su-20, we know it's Russian. We know they're the only ones flying this this particular airplane. We know what color it is. How we know who's inside of it. We know who's inside that airplane. This person is Russian through and through. And then he goes ahead and says, I have Bear, call sign Bear, 130 miles out, doing 1,000 miles an hour, heading towards, somewhere. And that's all they got to do is think it's a threat. And you get that call and they'll say, take him out. He's going to fire from 130 miles out. I don't even know AMRAAM or Sidewinder missiles. I don't even know what missiles they are. But that missile's going to hit Mach 3. And that SU is not even going to know it's coming. And about time it does know it's coming, He's going to fire off flares. He's going to do an evasive maneuver. He's going to climb, then he's going to dive. However they do it, I'm not a pilot. He's going to try to release his flares and try to bank heavy. And that damn, it's going to hit him right in the tail feather. And as soon as it does, their computer systems are going to light up Russia's computer system because they're going to already know that they've been locked onto. They know every plane that's been taken down. And they know who took it down. Every plane that's been taken down already in this 12-day war, they know who took them down. Because of the weapon that was used. They know if it was a law that took it down, which is a surface to air. They know if it was a tank that took it down, which I don't think that they have. They know if it was a tow that took it down. They know every single one that's been taken down. They know who took it. They know if an airplane shot it down, what airplane shot it down. Because all of these airplanes have the same thing. If they get locked on, they know what locked on it the majority of the time. See, the F-22, the only time it's seen as a airplane is when it opens its bay doors. It's the only time it gives away its signal. When those bay doors open, close. It goes right back to being a pin, just a little blip. This is what the pilot sees. He looks down, he sees a blip. If his radar stretches that far, he sees a blip, he doesn't think nothing of it. He doesn't know what it is. When those doors open, his computer lights up and says, this is what it is. Then he'll have the computer will also tell it he's been locked on. Now he's got to try some evasive maneuvers and try to get out of that, which is usually letting out flares and then doing all this whatever. But now you have something coming at you at, Mach 3. You can't outrun it. Your plane's not fast enough to outrun it. Unless you got I don't even think that's fast enough to outrun it. The fastest plane in the sky is a MiG-29. The fastest warplane in the sky is a MiG-29. You're still not going to outrun it. You're just not. You can try to outmaneuver it. You're probably not going to do that either because it has a heat signature or you have a heat signature. The only way you're going to get away from it is if you fool it. Okay, so in recent wars, America has been known to just, drop as many bombs on our enemy, And some of our enemies have figured this out. America loves dropping bombs on people, even their own people. So what they did was they said, well, in order for, I think these were the Serbians, in order for them to drop bombs on us, they have to know where we're at. So what they did was they realized that these guys are not looking out the window and going, there's our target. You're not dropping these bombs from a B-52 fixed wing Condor or whatever, giant plane that holds all these ordnance. You're not looking out the window and going, boom, that's our target. You're using radar. You're using some type of radar to say, that's our target. So what they did was they took targets that were already blown up and they lined them up in a convoy as if, they're moving. So what happened is America kept bombing the same targets and they were going, we just killed so many people. And they found out that there was nobody there. They would also have real live people in an area that was watching. What they would do is they would have barrels, these barrels, like an oil barrel. And they would put the oil barrel out in the sun. Well, what would happen is whenever you had a target lock, it was target lock because of a heat signature. So when you would fire your missile and try to hit one area, but it would go towards what has the greatest heat signature. And it would light up that barrel, boom, and you would miss your target completely because you were dealing with smart bombs. Isn't that somebody going, there you go, shoot? This is a computer saying, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Turns out it wasn't. So where they thought they killed, 10,000, 20,000 soldiers, found out that they only killed 1,000 soldiers. I'm saying all that to say that it just isn't going to take much, even with our advanced equipment, for somebody to make a mistake. And then our advanced airplanes, we already had one fall off of a runway of an aircraft carrier. That happened 2 months ago, a month ago. We've already had that happen, and it was the pilot's fault. And that was in the South China Seas because we're so worried about Taiwan being invaded and their democracy. I'm like, I got nothing against Taiwan, but what's that got to do with me? So we have all of our aircraft carriers in these places just waiting for something to jump off, and now we have a war that has jumped off, and we're supplying these people in order for them to fight a war that we know that they're going to lose. It's just only going to take a matter of very short time for us to go, you know what, forget it. If we really want to stop, if they really want to stop Putin, if they really want to stop him, they're not going to send in a bunch of machine guns and say, have at it. These are regular people. Once all the soldiers are done, even right now, you got more regular people arming up than you have soldiers. What's going to happen? These are not people who are used to being in the military. These are fathers who left behind their whole family and say, I'm going to fight for Ukraine. What's going to happen? Do you think that they're going to win against trained soldiers? They're not giving them tanks. They're giving them tank killers. Well, Russia's going to adapt to that. Matter of fact, they already have. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? The Ukraine has sank their mothership. Their admirals sank their mothership because they didn't want Russia. That's what I'm saying. This war is finished. You sank a multi-billion-dollar gunship. This is not a yacht. This is your mothership. This is the biggest mothership that they had. They sank it in its own harbor. This just happened a couple days ago. And they were like, why did you sink it? It's because we don't want the Russians to get it. And there's only one way you would think that the Russians would get that weapon. There's only one way. You know that they're going to complete their objective. That admiral knows that they're going to make it so far inland where they're going to take over the whole country. Mark my word. All this stuff that CNN is doing and hyping everybody up and making people think that this is a wonderful story, it's a terrible story. And they should be pleading with the United Nations to take those people and get those people out of there. Get those people out of there. If you care anything about the Ukrainian people, get them out of there. Start a caravan. Go. Listen, you go from city to city. You go to the outskirts. You go to any and every address that you can. And you put a big red cross on all your vehicles. A red and a white cross. And you make sure that they are unarmed. And that's what you do. You take a deuce and a half. A deuce and a half is a huge is a passenger truck, but it's used in the military. The whole back is gutted out and has seats on it and stuff like that. The reason why they call it a deuce and a half is because it's 2.5 tons. And we used to take them and pack them and go out into the field. But that's what you do. You take a caravan of deuce and a halves and you roll them through the whole country. You take that, fuel trucks, and all that other stuff, food supplies. There's a whole operation. You could do all of that. And you empty out the cities, you empty out everyone. Screw all of this walking and all these sad stories that they love to film. You get, boom. 2 weeks, it's over. There's not a person there, not unless they want to be there. And the hard-headed people are going to stay. You're going to have old people who are like, I'm going to die in Ukraine. There's nothing you can do about that. But all the people who want to go, you get those ridiculous cops off of that border. You tell them to stop, telling people they can't cross into Poland. Because that's what they're doing to black people. Black people, you're going to stay here. Black people like, screw that, we're not staying here. So they're making them walk to other borders to get into other countries because Poland won't let them in. You know what I'm saying? You cut that ridiculousness out right now. You go and you step on her neck. You guys, you're relieved of duty. Get out of here. Boom, catch the train. Get out of here. We're taking this whole thing over. UN just take over the whole thing. And if they got something to say, arrest them. My guns are bigger than yours right now. So, yeah, what do you want to do? We'll shoot you. Beat it. Get rid of them. Tell the Polish government, listen, these black people are coming into Poland. We don't care what you have to say, or you're going to get invaded next, and we're going to leave it to you. What do you want to do? Okay, that's what I thought. Boom, out of the way. That's what they need to do. And you'll have thousands of trucks rolling in with all these people on it. Boom, you take them, you set up a whole camp where they need to go, and then distribute them, FEMA camps. You know what I'm saying? The whole FEMA camps until they get registered and then, go to wherever until this whole thing's blown over and you tell Putin, boom, it's all yours. And that's just that. They don't want to do that. That's what I would do. But they don't want to do that because they want to provoke one of the angriest people on the planet. I don't know. I just can't. I just don't get it. So, you guys got any questions for me? I think there's like 5 or 6 people here. And I appreciate the 5 or 6 people who are listening. Yeah. My hair is looking crazy. But yeah, that's just what I think. Are we going to war? The answer is yes. I don't know how big it's going to get, but there's just no doubt in my mind. I've seen it before. I've lived through it. I was almost deployed in the same. It feels like the same thing. It feels like Bush Senior all over again. It feels like Desert Storm all over again. It's the same thing. And I think we're going to go to war. Do I think there's going to be a nuclear bomb dropped? Yes, I do. Absolutely. Yes, I do. Yeah. I think that Putin is going to target our supplies. I think that, yeah, he's going to hit some supplies somewhere. Of course, it's not going to be him who does it. It's going to be the people who are already heading towards Kiev, the soldiers. I think they're going to find a supply route that is UN, and I think they're going to destroy all the people there. And once they do that, the UN is just going to jump in full swing, and they're going to start shooting rescues. And once you aim your bullets at the Red Army, they're going to aim them back. Now the Red Army is fighting the UN, and once that happens, you're going to see a whole bunch of H-bombs go off, and they're not going to be in Kiev. They're going to be on the outskirts. They're going to. Then, of course, once that happened, the ships in the Black Sea, they're already, talking stuff to each other. So that's a skirmish that's already about to pop off. I mean, they're pretty much, the Russians are trying to blockade the Black Sea, but that's not going to settle too well because, we need to be able to fire, 28, 30 miles for our gunships. Our aircraft carriers, they could sit, a couple hundred miles out, no big deal, and tear up whatever they want to because they have all of those planes. So, yeah, I think it's going to happen. I just don't think they put $56 billion worth of equipment that could kill people in an instant and made it just to look fancy. Look, they already have fifth generation fighters out. The only person that has a fifth generation fighter actually on the playing field, well, the 22 could be considered a fifth generation fighter. I think it's really a fourth generation fighter. But China has a fifth generation fighter. I think it's a J-30. It's a J-20 or J-30. It's a badass too. It is a badass. But yeah, so if anybody got any questions before I go up and talking for 2 hours, nobody's saying anything anymore. You guys are just listening. I appreciate it though. I appreciate it. Look up the J-30. That thing is awesome. We can't outrun it either. We don't have anything that can outrun a J-30. Not weaponized. I think it's just badass. Super maneuverable. Ridiculous. China's got more ships than we do. They could knock out those aircraft carriers. China and Russia have hypersonic missiles. Nobody else has them. The U.S. doesn't have them. Nobody else has them. A hypersonic missile can knock out an aircraft carrier in a blink of an eye. It just can. It's the one thing that America fears because they're hard to shoot down. A hypersonic missile is coming at you. There's a good chance by the time you see it, it's too late. Like you don't have time to pack and get out. Your 22s and 35s aren't going to shoot it down. Your Hornets are definitely not going to catch it. Your 15s and 14s, the 15 is the fastest thing we got. It's not going to catch it. You're not going to shoot that down, not with anything that's on an aircraft carrier. If you don't believe me, look it up. You're not going to shoot that thing down. That thing's going to fall out of the sky and hit you so quick, it's going to obliterate it. To show you the damage of sinking a ship that size, a Nimitz class aircraft carrier. I'll just put it to you like this. The emperor, the Japanese emperor, had a ship that they thought was invincible. The Yamamoto, I think that's what it was called. And this thing was something else. I mean, it had gun turrets everywhere. And it was a work of beauty. It was so big. It displayed so much water. It was so huge that 3,000 Japanese soldiers could live on this thing. That's how big it was. I think it was the Yamamoto. I could be wrong. Somebody corrects me, that's fine. But look this thing up. This was during World War II. The biggest problem with this is it was a huge target, and our Mustangs, airplanes, could bomb it, and they could bomb it by not doing usually what Zeros would do. Japanese Zeros would just fall down on you, suicide bomb. Our planes fly over you, let the bomb go. And sometimes they'll fly so close to you, let the bomb go, hits the water, boom, blows you up. It couldn't get away from torpedoes. It just couldn't. All the guns on top of that thing could not stop it from being torpedoed. Usually when a ship is trying to be stopped from being torpedoes, you usually shoot the plane out of the sky. You shoot the U-boat or whatever boat that's trying to torpedo you out of the water, or you fire depth charges. Depth charges are for U-boats and submarines and stuff like that. And it gets close to them and boom, blows them up and all this other stuff. And or you fire other torpedoes. They couldn't get away from it. And it sank, and 3,000 soldiers died in an instant. Boom. And this is back in 1948. That's when the war started. You can imagine the damage it would do to some of our aircraft carriers today. Anybody got any questions before I go? I think I talked enough. Now, unless you got something else you want me to talk about. All right, well, let me go ahead and go. Thank you guys for stopping by. God bless you and have a good day. Peace.